Hello everyone, I'm Kirsty. Welcome to Heart's Humble Homestead. Today I'm going to show how to make a simple sourdough, including the mistakes I made along the way due to using a different flour. Hope you enjoy. It's the night before I'm making the first sourdough loaf, so I've just discarded and fed as normal. So the discard is in there to make some discard crackers. And I'm just going to leave that overnight to rise. I'll be back in the morning. It's about 12 hours later, so we're going to start the actual sourdough bread. So I've got 350 ml of water. I will put the cup measurements on the screen and in the description below. And to that we want to add 50 grams of active starter. Slightly over. That will be fine. And just give it a mix. I'm not bothered about it being slightly over because some does stick to the side anyway. And to that I'm going to add 500 grams of bread flour. You can use a mix of white and wholemeal bread flour. I've just got white for this one. And 10 grams of salt. And we just want to mix that in with a strong spoon or even your hands until there's no flour. You can do it the other way as well, of putting the water and sourdough mix on top, but I always find I get some dry floury bits at the bottom if I do it that way. There is many methods to making sourdough, so you may do it differently. This is just the way that works for me and what time we have. There we go. So now we're just going to cover it and leave it at room temperature for 1 hour, just so it all incorporates together. I'm also going to feed that one ready for next time. I'll come back in an hour. It's been an hour. It has continued to hydrate, so now we're just going to wet our hand and stretch and pull it over itself, and then turn a quarter, do the same again, stretch and pull it over itself, turn it another quarter, wet your hands if needed, stretch, pull it over itself, and then the final one, stretch and pull it over itself. Now we're just going to cover and leave it for another half an hour. been half an hour, so we're just going to do the same again. So with our hand, stretch and tuck, stretch and tuck, stretch and tuck, and stretch and tuck. Now we need to leave it covered for 7 to 10 hours. To add between 7 and 10 hours, what you need to look for is it rising by about 50 to 75%. If it has doubled in size, it may have overproofed, like this one. As you can see, that's a lot bigger. I am still going to bake that. It will still make a nice edible loaf, but it may not have as many bubbles in or rise quite as well as a regular sourdough, but I will show you that as well. I'm just going to wet my fingers because it is quite sticky and just lift it out onto a gently flour dusted parchment paper, baking paper, or this is a silicone mat. And we're just going to tuck the ends up into the centre so it creates a ball, and then flip it over. And now we're just going to tuck it, pull towards yourself and just tuck it under, tuck it under, until it creates a nice ball shape. Just going to transfer mine to what I'm going to be baking it on. If you're baking it on your grease proof, you don't need to do this step. Now I'm just going to lift it into a bowl, keeping the grease proof or whatever you're using underneath, and we're just going to let it rest while the oven preheats. So it needs to be gas mark 8. I will put the alternatives here depending on what oven you have, and it needs to be for at least 30 minutes. That needs to heat up for. If you're using a Dutch oven, that needs adding at this point too. If you don't have a Dutch oven and you're baking it on a tray, you can do it this way. So I've got a loaf tin and I've just popped another loaf tin on top. Or you can just bake it on a lined baking tray. But what you need to do is put a secondary baking tray at the bottom of your oven filled with hot water, and that will create the same steam effect that a Dutch oven does. So it's not necessary when you're first starting out. I did it for about 2 years before I got a Dutch oven, and it works out completely fine. So I'll come back when the oven's preheated. Right, I've got the incredibly hot cast iron out of the oven. Please, please, please wear gloves. We're just going to pop our loaf in. And using a sharp knife or a blade, we're just going to do a slice. And this is also where you can put little designs on. If you want to. That hasn't quite cooked properly. Be very careful you don't burn yourself doing this bit. That's just giving it room to expand. This blade must be blunt. It'll still work. Now we're just going to pop the lid on, put it in the oven for 20 minutes. And then we're going to take the lid off and put it in the oven for another 25 minutes. So it goes nice and brown. If you are doing it on a tray with the water underneath, what you need to do is just leave it in the oven for 45 minutes on gas mark 5, and that will work. You don't need to worry about a lid or anything like that. So I'll come back after 20 minutes. It's been 20 minutes, so I'm going to take the lid off. Please don't put the cast iron top lid on your worktop, it will blister it. We're just going to pop that back in the oven for between 25 and 30 minutes until it's nice and brown on top. There's the first loaf out. This is the overproofed one, but as you can see, it's still a decent loaf of bread. Might be a bit more dense, but I can still see some of them lovely sourdough bubbles there. Now I'm going to let that cool. It's the hardest part now, letting it cool down for 1 to 2 hours. Otherwise it will go like a sticky gummy loaf. So we just need to leave it now. I'll come back when the other one's out. Oh dear. But I know exactly what the issue is. So this is Asda's own bread flour. So after the pantry challenge, we were very low on flour, as you're all aware. So I went to Asda, I picked up some until our delivery of what we buy from eBay, the big sacks, arrived. And that's what this is. This flour seems to be working like plain flour. As I put in the writing earlier in the video, it needs less hydration than bread flour normally does. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a trial a few times with it. I'll leave this in the video because I want to show you that even though I've been making sourdough for years, things still happen. It will still make an edible loaf, but as you can see, it's spread, not risen. So what I'll do, I'll get this out as normal, let it cool, but I'll have a faff about and put a bit on at the end when I know what the issue is. So I'll be back then. As predicted, the flour was overhydrated, so it seems to be working in the same way as a plain flour. I don't know if Lidl and brands like that would have a similar effect. If you do try it, please let me know. So I used 325 grams of water instead of the 350 I normally use with bread flour, and the results were fine. It worked exactly the same. I did exactly the same method, so I haven't re-videoed it, but I will put a picture here of the successful loaf. And to be honest, the other two were still successful, they were still edible, we still enjoyed them. They just didn't raise up quite as much as we wanted, but that's fine. I hope you enjoyed this, everybody. Let me know if you try it down below. I'm going to do some sourdough discard recipes in a different video. I'm not sure if it'll be the next video, but I'll let you know. And then I'll put it in a playlist, so all the sourdoughs together. That's why I've done it differently. So you can just go to whichever one you want. Hope you enjoyed this, everybody. Thank you for watching. Bye.